how'd you end up at SC?
So, you know what, man? This is a story that I don't get to tell a whole lot. I'm going to tell it to you because it literally is a shock to people when I tell it. So 1990, I was being recruited by everybody. And I was an arrogant 17-year-old. And when I mean arrogant, like I remember coming home from school one day, and when I got off the school bus and walked to my house, there were 3 D1 coaches' cars sitting in front of my house, all waiting to come and talk to me.
What?
And I walked in the house and I let them sit outside for like 45 minutes and wouldn't come to the door because I came home and I ate my cereal, right? So I had some arrogance about me, right? And I had schools, I was segregating schools. Like, you know, if I liked your logo, I would keep that letter, or if I didn't like your logo, I would throw it in a box and I would let my little brothers play with it. I mean, I was like super arrogant, right? So this is where it comes full circle. So when I'm making my list of, you know, a bunch of schools. I had UCLA on my list. I had Stanford on my list. Michigan was on my list. Ohio State on my list. So all Big Ten, Pac-10 schools. I didn't really have anybody in the South on my list. The only school in the South that was on my list was Virginia Tech, because I was a Virginia kid. And then I had NC State for some reason. And I think it was because their coach was like the nicest guy. His name was Robbie Caldwell, and I kind of liked him. So I'm getting these phone calls and I'm trying to line up my recruiting visits. You know, you get 5 D1 visits. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go to UCLA. I'm gonna go to Ohio State. I'm gonna go to this place. So I'm lining them all up, right? And literally my phone was ringing and I'm preparing to go to Ohio State. So I called the coach and said, yeah, okay, I'm gonna come on a visit. He says, okay. So he calls me on, like, I think like a Tuesday. I don't even remember the coach's name. He says, Anton, we really want you to come and visit. We're looking forward to your visit at Ohio State. And I said, cool, coach, I'm looking forward too. And he says, well, you know, we got a little problem. I said, what's the problem? He says, somebody in the front office forgot to book your ticket, and we can book it today, but it's going to cost like $900. And I was like, yeah, okay. And he says, we want to make sure you're committed to Ohio State before you come on a visit. I was like, committed? I said, I'm committed to take a visit.
That's crazy.
He's like, no, we need you to commit before we buy the plane ticket. I was like, man, I got 3 more visits. I ain't about to commit to y'all. You crazy? And he was like, well, you know, hold on, son. Coach John Cooper wants to talk to you. That was the head coach at Ohio State. So he puts John Cooper on the phone, and Coach Cooper begins to lecture me about the greatness of Ohio State football. At least that's how I interpret it. And he was just trying to sell the school on me. He was talking about all the great athletes and Heisman Trophy winners and Archie Griffin and all of these other things. And I was listening to him, and as he kept talking, I kept pulling the phone further and further away because I didn't want to hear no more. You know why? Because my phone had beeped like 5 times while he was talking to me. And so I finally said, Coach, you finished? He says, yeah. I said, well, look, you can keep your visit because I ain't coming. And I got 5 other schools that's calling me right now. I ain't coming. And I hung up on him. And then as soon as I hung up, I was like, oh, crap. I just hung up on Ohio State University. Now, some people were thinking I'm sad because I hung up on a big school. No, I was upset because I didn't have nothing to do that weekend. I was planning to go on a visit, and I didn't want to sit at home with my mom and my brothers. And so when I hung up the phone, I panicked, and the phone rang 2 seconds later, and I picked up the phone, and I thought it was the Ohio State coach calling back. However, it wasn't. It was a coach from the University of South Carolina. His name was Brad Lawing, and he says, Anton, we've been calling you. I've been coming to your high school. You never come out to class to talk to me. Did you get all the letters that we've been sending you? We want to talk to you about becoming a Gamecock. And I was like, what's a Gamecock? And I said, hold on a second, coach. And I put the phone down, and I ran upstairs into my brother's room because I told you the schools that I wasn't interested in, their logos, I threw them in a box and gave them to my little brothers. So I go into my brother's room, and I open up this box, and it's like 100 letters from the University of South Carolina unopened in this box. Like I never even opened them up. So I was like, University of South Carolina. And I get back on the phone and I say, hey, coach, could you have me on a visit this weekend? If I come down, would you have me on a visit? He said, absolutely. We can't fly you down, but we'll pay your mileage if you can come down this weekend. I've been wanting to get you down on a visit. And I yelled upstairs to my mom. I said, Mom, what you doing this weekend? She says, nothing. I said, you want to ride with me to South Carolina? She said, for what? I said, because I'm going to take a visit to the University of South Carolina. And her response was, why? And I said, because they want me to come on a visit. And she says, okay. And so I come down in January of 1991, a cold, rainy weekend in 1991. And I have one of the best official visits of my life. And after that, South Carolina raised itself from not being on my radar screen at all to the top two schools that I ultimately made a decision between. And that was NC State and South Carolina. One of the reasons why I narrowed it to those two schools, as I told you, my father was in the military and he got called away to Desert Storm in 1991. And I made a decision that I wasn't going to go all the way to California when my dad was on the other side of the world and my younger brothers, 3 of them, wouldn't have a male role model in the house or around the house. And so I wanted to go to a school that was far enough that I can be on my own, but close enough that if I needed to get back home to be a big brother or a father figure to my younger brothers, I could get home in about a 5 or 6 hour drive. And so when I did a map circumference, the University of South Carolina was exactly 6 hours from my parents' driveway. And that's how I made the decision to come to the University of South Carolina.
Wow. Wow. Wonder if there's a lot of coincidences or just everything just works out like it's supposed to, man.
Yeah, it did. And I will tell you, man, I had a terrible football experience as a student athlete. We can talk about that if you want, but it's the best decision that I made. I'm loyal to the Gamecocks. You know, I sit on the Association of Letterman's board of directors right now. I'm a donor to the university. I got 2 degrees from there. My wife has a degree from there. So I really am supportive of the university. And that was despite not having a great college football experience. It was actually pretty terrible the 4 years I was there. And I thought about quitting 2 or 3 times because of how I was being treated. But nonetheless, you know, it all worked together for the good and it's helped me a lot in my life.